I paid for my parents' retirement for 8 years, but they cut me out of their will. The email notification popped up on my phone at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, just as I was reviewing code for tomorrow's sprint planning. Estate planning documents, please review, from Hartwell and Associates Law Firm. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, until I saw my parents' names in the sender line. Mom and Dad had been talking about updating their will for months. At 34, I figured it was responsible of them to get their affairs in order, especially after Dad's heart attack last year and Mom's ongoing diabetes complications. I'd been sending them $2,000 every month for the past 8 years to help cover their mortgage, medical bills, and living expenses, so I knew exactly how tight their finances were. What I didn't expect was to find myself completely written out of their will. I read the document 3 times, certain I was missing something. The house at 1247 Maple Street that I'd helped them avoid foreclosure on twice. The life insurance policies I'd encouraged them to maintain. The small investment account that had grown because they didn't have to touch it, thanks to my monthly contributions. All of it, every single dollar of their $800,000 estate, was going to my brother Marcus. Marcus, who lived in Portland and visited maybe twice a year. Marcus, who forgot Dad's 70th birthday last month. Marcus, who had never once asked about their medical bills or whether they needed help with groceries. Marcus, who still owed Dad $15,000 from his business venture 5 years ago that went nowhere. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through my banking app, calculating the numbers I already knew by heart. $192,000. That's what I'd given them over 8 years. Nearly $200,000 that I could have used for a down payment on a house, or invested for my own retirement, or literally anything other than propping up 2 people who apparently saw me as nothing more than a convenient ATM. The will was dated 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks after I'd helped them negotiate a payment plan with the hospital for Mom's emergency room visit. 3 weeks after I'd personally driven to their mortgage company to straighten out a paperwork issue that could have triggered late fees. I set my phone down and walked to my kitchen, staring out at the apartment complex parking lot. At 34, I was still renting a 1-bedroom because I prioritized their financial stability over my own future. I drove a 2016 Honda with 180,000 miles because I couldn't justify a car payment when they needed help with utilities. I hadn't taken a real vacation in 4 years because every extra dollar went toward keeping them afloat. The worst part wasn't even the money. It was the realization that every Sunday dinner, every holiday visit, every concerned phone call about Dad's medication costs had been built on a lie. They'd been perfectly content to let me sacrifice my financial future while secretly planning to reward the son who couldn't be bothered to call them on Christmas. I picked up my phone and opened my banking app again, navigating to the recurring transfer section. The $2,000 monthly payment to Mom and Dad Emergency Fund had been automatically scheduled for this Friday, just 3 days away. Not anymore. I canceled the transfer and felt something shift inside my chest, not relief exactly, but a strange lightness, like I'd been holding my breath for 8 years and could finally exhale. Tomorrow, I decided, I would start building my own life with my own money. As for Mom and Dad, they were about to discover what their golden child was really worth. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 12 text messages. All from Mom. Honey, there's been some kind of mistake with the bank transfer. The mortgage payment bounced. Can you call me? Your father is getting chest pains from stress. Please call. Why aren't you answering your phone? I made coffee and scrolled through them while sitting at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd eaten countless meals of ramen and frozen dinners because I was sending half my discretionary income to people who saw me as a financial placeholder. My phone rang again. Mom's contact photo, the 2 of us at last year's Mother's Day brunch that I'd paid for, filled the screen. Michael, thank God. There's something wrong with your automatic transfer. The bank says. I canceled it, I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. Silence. Then, what do you mean you canceled it? I mean I'm not sending you money anymore, Mom. Effective immediately. But we have bills due today. The mortgage payment is 3 days late already, and if we don't, then I guess you should call Marcus. Another pause, longer this time. Marcus? Honey, Marcus can't, he doesn't have that kind of money right now. His startup failed 3 years ago, Mom. He's been working at a Target distribution center in Beaverton since 2021. I know because unlike you, I actually keep track of what's going on in my family's lives. I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end. Michael, I don't understand what's brought this on. Did we do something wrong? The genuine confusion in her voice almost broke me. Almost. Check your email from Hartwell and Associates. Read the document they sent you a copy of. Then ask yourself if you really don't understand. I hung up and immediately blocked both their numbers. By noon, my doorbell was ringing. I looked through the peephole and saw my neighbor Mrs. Chen holding an envelope. A man dropped this off for you about an hour ago, she said when I opened the door. Said he was your father but couldn't get you to answer your phone. He looked upset, dear. Is everything all right? The envelope contained a handwritten letter on Dad's prescription pad paper, the only paper he ever wrote on, a habit from 40 years of being a family doctor. Michael. Asterisk, your mother is crying and I don't understand what happened. We got the will from Hartwell as a courtesy copy, but we thought you knew we were leaving the house to Marcus. He's going to need it more than you. You have a good job and no kids. Marcus has Sarah and the twins to think about, asterisk. Asterisk, we never meant for you to see it like this. We figured we'd talk to you about it at Sunday dinner this weekend, asterisk. Asterisk, can we please talk? The mortgage company called and said we have until Monday to bring the payment current or they start foreclosure proceedings, asterisk. Love. Dad. I read it twice, then walked to my kitchen and fed it through my paper shredder. Marcus had twins. Since when? And who the hell was Sarah? I opened my laptop and pulled up Facebook for the first time in months, searching for my brother's profile. There it was, dozens of photos I'd never seen. Marcus with a blonde woman and 2 toddlers at a pumpkin patch. Marcus in what looked like a new Toyota Camry. My 401k, which I'd been contributing the bare minimum to because family comes first, could finally get the attention it deserved. I opened a spreadsheet and started calculating what my life could look like with an extra $24,000 per year. The numbers were staggering. If I'd been investing that $2,000 monthly in index funds for the past 8 years instead of subsidizing their lifestyle, I'd have close to $280,000 by now. Enough for a substantial down payment on a house. Enough to actually start living like a 34-year-old software engineer instead of a college student. My laptop chimed with a new email. The sender made my stomach drop, marcus.chen.pdx@gmail.com. Mike. Asterisk mom called me crying about some mix-up with your bank transfer. She said you hung up on her and won't answer your phone. What's going on, man? I know you and dad have your differences, but mom doesn't deserve to be caught in the middle of whatever this is, asterisk. Asterisk she mentioned something about foreclosure. That can't be right. I thought their house was almost paid off, asterisk. Asterisk can you call me? 503-555-0847, asterisk. Marcus. His casual ignorance was breathtaking. He genuinely had no idea that our parents had been skating on the edge of financial disaster for years. No idea that every month had been a careful juggling act of medical bills, mortgage payments, and basic living expenses. No idea that without my contributions, they would have lost everything years ago. I hit reply and typed. Marcus. Asterisk there's no mix-up. I've stopped sending mom and dad money because I found out about the will. Congratulations on inheriting an $800,000 estate that I spent 8 years helping to preserve, asterisk. Asterisk since you're getting everything, you can start taking care of everything. The mortgage payment is $1,847 per month. Mom's diabetes medication runs about $340. Dad's heart medication is another $180. Utilities average $200. That's before groceries, car maintenance, or any emergency medical expenses, asterisk. Asterisk I've been covering most of this for 96 months straight. Your turn, asterisk. Asterisk also, the house isn't almost paid off. They still owe about $180,000. You might want to start learning the details of what you're inheriting, asterisk. Michael. I sent it before I could second guess myself. My phone rang within 10 minutes. Unknown Portland number. Jesus Christ, Mike. Are you serious about these numbers? Dead serious. Check with them if you don't believe me. I had no idea it was that bad. Mom always said you just helped out occasionally when things got tight. Things have been tight for 8 years, Marcus. I've been sending them $2,000 a month since 2016. Silence stretched between us. 2,000. Every month. Every single month. $192,000 total. Want to see the bank statements? Fuck. His voice sounded smaller suddenly. Mike, I don't have that kind of money. Sarah's photography thing is just getting started, and with the twins in daycare. But you're the shift supervisor now, right? Congratulations, by the way. I had to learn about your promotion from Facebook since no one bothers to keep me informed about family news. Look, I know we haven't been great about staying in touch, but I never asked them to. To what? Leave you everything while I get nothing? No, you didn't have to ask. Apparently, being their favorite was enough. There has to be something we can work out. Some kind of arrangement. I looked around my cramped apartment, at the secondhand furniture and the stack of bills I've been carefully managing around my parents' needs for 8 years. There is an arrangement, Marcus. It's called you stepping up for once in your adult life. The foreclosure notice would arrive in their mailbox tomorrow. I'd looked up the timeline online. After that, they'd have maybe 2 weeks before the real pressure started. 2 weeks for the golden child to prove his worth. 3 days after my conversation with Marcus, I came home from work to find my parents sitting in their ancient Buick in my apartment complex parking lot. They'd been waiting there for God knows how long, and Dad looked pale in a way that made my chest tighten despite everything. I walked past their car without acknowledging them and headed for my building entrance. Mom got out first. Michael, please. We need to talk. I stopped but didn't turn around. About what? About how you thought you'd break the news that I'm worth nothing to you over Sunday pot roast. About how you've been lying to Marcus about your finances for years while I kept you afloat. We never lied to anyone, Dad said, climbing slowly out of the passenger seat. We didn't want to burden him. He's got a young family. And I don't matter because I'm single. Mom stepped closer, and I could see she'd been crying. Of course you matter. You're our son. No, Mom. Marcus is your son. I'm apparently your loan officer. I finally turned to face them, and the sight hit me harder than I expected. Dad had lost weight since his heart attack, and Mom's hands were shaking slightly, probably her blood sugar. For just a moment, I wavered. Then I remembered the will. The foreclosure notice came yesterday, Dad said quietly. We have 14 days. Then you better call your heir. We did call Marcus, Mom said. He says he can maybe help with $500 a month, but that's not enough. Michael, we raised you. We put you through college. I put myself through college with student loans that I finished paying off last year. And you didn't raise me to be your retirement plan. Dad pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Look, I called Hartwell. We can change the will. We can split everything 50-50. The offer hung in the air between us. 50-50 would be $400,000. More than enough to justify the money I'd already spent. A reasonable person would probably take it. But I wasn't feeling reasonable. Let me get this straight, I said. You'll change your will now that your ATM is broken, but for 8 years it never occurred to you that maybe the son who was sacrificing his own future deserved some consideration. We thought you were helping because you loved us, Mom whispered. I did love you. That's what makes this so much worse. I started walking toward my building again. Behind me, I heard Dad say, "What do you want from us, Michael? Tell us what you want." I stopped at the entrance and looked back at them standing next to their car. 2 elderly people who suddenly looked very small and very fragile. I want Marcus to know what it feels like to get a call at 2 a.m. because you're in the emergency room and someone needs to figure out how to pay for it. I want him to spend his weekends driving you to doctor appointments and pharmacy runs. I want him to choose between his own financial security and yours every single month. He can't. He can't what, Dad? He can't handle being responsible for the people who are leaving him everything they own. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided I was disposable. I pulled out my phone and showed them the screen. I've been tracking rental prices. With what I was sending you, I can afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Riverside Heights. I'm moving next month. It was a lie. I hadn't looked at apartments yet. But the stricken look on their faces told me the message had landed. 14 days, I said, echoing Dad's words back to him. Better start figuring out what your golden child is really worth. I left them standing in the parking lot and didn't look back. The next morning, I woke up to something I hadn't experienced in 8 years, silence. No panicked texts about overdue bills. No voicemails about insurance claims or prescription costs. Just blessed, expensive silence. I made coffee and actually sat down to drink it instead of gulping it down while checking my bank balance. For the first time in recent memory, I wasn't calculating whether I could afford groceries after my parents' automatic transfer. That piece lasted exactly 47 minutes. My work phone rang at 8:23 a.m. The caller ID showed Hartwell and Associates. Mr. Chin. This is Jennifer Hartwell. I represent your parents, David and Linda Chin. I have them in my office, and they're quite distressed about a family matter. They've asked me to contact you regarding some urgent financial arrangements. I almost hung up, but curiosity won. What kind of arrangements? They're requesting an immediate modification to their estate planning documents, and they'd like to discuss the possibility of formalizing the financial assistance you've been providing. Perhaps we could structure it as a loan with the estate as collateral. A loan. They wanted to make it official that I was their bank, complete with legal documentation. Ms. Hartwell, are my parents paying you for this call? Well, yes, this is billable time, but... Then you should probably tell them they can't afford legal fees right now. They're about to lose their house. I hung up and immediately called my manager. Hey, Sandra. I need to take a personal day. Family emergency. Except instead of rushing to help my parents, I drove to Riverside Heights and walked into the first apartment complex I found. I need a 2-bedroom unit, I told the leasing agent, a cheerful woman named Patricia who looked thrilled to have a walk-in prospect. Move-in date as soon as possible. Wonderful. Our 2-bedroom units start at $1,650 per month. Would you like to see the model? $1,650. Still $350 less than what I've been sending my parents monthly. The irony wasn't lost on me. The apartment was beautiful. Granite countertops, in-unit washer and dryer, a balcony overlooking a small pond. Everything I'd dreamed about while sitting in my cramped 1-bedroom, eating dollar store pasta so I could afford to keep my parents housed. I'll take it, I said before Patricia even finished the tour. Don't you want to think about it? Check with your spouse or... No spouse. No one to check with. Just me making decisions about my own money for once. I filled out the application sitting in their office, using my phone to transfer the security deposit from my suddenly healthy bank account. The approval came back within 2 hours. Credit score, 847. Debt-to-income ratio, excellent. 8 years of financial restraint had made me a landlord's dream. I was signing the lease when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, this is Sarah, Marcus's wife. Can we talk? He told me what's happening with your parents. I think there's been a huge misunderstanding, asterisk. I stared at the message. Sarah wanted to talk. The woman I'd learned existed exactly 4 days ago wanted to mediate my family crisis. I typed back, what kind of misunderstanding? Her response came immediately, asterisk, Marcus never knew about the will. Your parents told us they were leaving everything to charity except for a few personal items. He's as shocked as you are, asterisk. I stopped walking to my car and read the message again. They told Marcus they were leaving everything to charity. Asterisk, that's impossible. The will specifically names him as sole beneficiary, asterisk. Asterisk, can we meet somewhere? I have something to show you. Something Marcus found when he went through some old emails after talking to you, asterisk. Against my better judgment, I found myself typing, asterisk, Starbucks on 5th Street. 1 hour, asterisk. I spent the drive wondering what other lies my parents had been telling, and to whom. Sarah turned out to be exactly what I'd expected, young, blonde, tired-looking in the way of parents with small children. She was clutching a manila folder and checking her phone anxiously when I walked in. Michael. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I sat down across from her, studying her face for signs of deception. What did you want to show me? She opened the folder and pulled out printed emails. These are from your mother to Marcus over the past 2 years. Read the dates. The first email was from March 2023, asterisk, Marcus, honey, Dad, and I finally met with the lawyer about our will. We've decided to leave most everything to charity. There are so many people less fortunate than our family. We'll make sure you get Dad's watch and Mom's jewelry, the sentimental things. Michael makes good money with his computer job, so we know you kids will be fine, asterisk. The second was from August 2023, asterisk, don't worry about helping us financially, sweetheart. Michael insists on contributing to our expenses, and we're managing just fine. Focus on those beautiful babies, asterisk. The third, from December 2023, asterisk, we're so proud of how well you're doing in Portland. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty about not visiting more often. We understand you have your own life to build, asterisk. I read them twice, my hands growing steadier with each line. Your parents, Sarah said quietly, have been lying to everyone. I stared at the email spread across the Starbucks table, my coffee growing cold as the full scope of my parents' deception crystallized. They hadn't just cut me out of the will, they'd orchestrated an elaborate lie to keep Marcus from feeling guilty about not helping while simultaneously keeping me trapped as their financial lifeline. There's more, Sarah said, pulling out her phone. Marcus found these text messages from your mom last week, right after you stopped the payments. She scrolled to a conversation thread and handed me the phone. Asterisk, Marcus, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Michael saw the will and got upset, but we never told him about the charity decision. He's demanding we leave him money now and threatening to cut us off financially if we don't change everything, asterisk. Asterisk, we're scared. He's been so controlling about our finances, always asking for receipts and questioning our spending. We never wanted to worry you with this, but he's been pressuring us to make him the beneficiary for months, asterisk. Asterisk, can you talk to him? We're afraid of what he might do if he thinks he's not getting anything, asterisk. I handed the phone back to Sarah, my hand surprisingly steady. So in their version, I'm the manipulative one extorting them for inheritance money? Marcus was ready to drive down here and confront you until I made him stop and think about the timeline. Sarah leaned forward. You've been sending them money for 8 years. The will was changed 3 weeks ago. If you were pressuring them about inheritance, why would they cut you out completely? She was sharper than I'd expected. What did Marcus say when you pointed that out? He called your mom back and asked for specific dates. When did you supposedly start pressuring them about the will? What exactly did you say? How long had this been going on? Sarah's expression darkened. She couldn't keep her story straight. First it was 6 months, then it was 2 years, then she said she couldn't remember exactly, but it had been ongoing. I pulled out my phone and showed her my banking app, scrolling through 8 years of $2,000 transfers. Every month. Same amount, same date. Never missed one, never asked for anything in return. Sarah studied the screen, then looked up at me with something like sympathy. Marcus found something else. Your parents took out a home equity loan 18 months ago. $85,000. Do you know what they used it for? My stomach dropped. No. They never mentioned any loan. Marcus called the bank this morning, pretending to help with their financial planning. The loan was supposedly for home improvements and medical expenses. She paused. But he drove by their house yesterday. There are no improvements, Michael. Nothing's changed since his last visit 2 years ago. $85,000. Gone. Along with the nearly $200,000 I'd given them over the years. I thought about my dad's letter mentioning they owed $180,000 on the house. That number was starting to make horrible sense. Where did the money go? I asked, though I was beginning to suspect the answer. Sarah hesitated. Marcus thinks they might have been supplementing their lifestyle beyond what you were sending. Your mom mentioned last Christmas that they'd been taking some nice trips, going out to dinner more often. They said it was because your computer job was doing so well and you insisted they enjoy themselves. I closed my eyes and tried to remember the last 8 years through this new lens. How many times had my mom mentioned a new restaurant they'd tried? How often had they casually referenced a weekend trip to visit family friends in California or a day trip to the coast? I'd always felt happy that they were maintaining some quality of life despite their struggles. Except they weren't struggling. They were living comfortably on my money while borrowing against the house to fund luxuries, all while planning to leave everything to Marcus and painting me as the villain when their house of lies collapsed. There's one more thing, Sarah said quietly. Marcus asked them directly about changing the will to include you. 50-50, like your dad offered. What did they say? Your mom said they'd consider it, but they'd need to think about whether it was fair to Marcus since he's going to have more family expenses than a single person. The casual cruelty of it hit me like a physical blow. Even now, even facing foreclosure, I was still just the ATM with no legitimate claim to consideration. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, asterisk Michael, this is your father. We're at the bank trying to work out a payment plan. They want to see proof of income including any financial support from family. Can you write a letter confirming you'll resume payments? We need it by 3 p.m. today, asterisk. I showed the message to Sarah. She read it and shook her head in disbelief. They still think you're going to save them. I typed back, asterisk ask Marcus. He's your beneficiary, asterisk. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, please don't do this to your mother. I turned off my phone and looked at Sarah. Tell Marcus he has until Monday to figure out his inheritance. I'm done being their safety net. Sarah and I parted ways with a strange sense of alliance. She promised to keep me updated on whatever Marcus decided, and I found myself actually hoping my brother would figure out how to step up. Not for my parents' sake, but because someone in this family needed to prove they were capable of basic decency. I spent the weekend in my soon-to-be former apartment, boxing up 8 years of a life put on hold. It was depressing how little I'd accumulated. Most of my furniture was second-hand, my clothes were functional rather than fashionable, and my kitchen contained exactly 1 plate, 1 bowl, and 2 mismatched coffee mugs. Everything else had been sacrificed on the altar of my parents' emergency fund. Monday morning arrived with no word from Marcus. I was reviewing code at my desk when my personal phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Beaverton. Mike. It's Marcus. We need to talk. His voice sounded rough, like he hadn't slept. Did you figure out the mortgage payment? That's what I'm calling about. I drove down to their house yesterday to go through their finances with them. Mike, it's so much worse than either of us knew. I minimized my work screen, suddenly giving him my full attention. How much worse? The home equity loan Sarah told you about. It's not the only one. They've got credit card debt I can't even calculate because they've been shuffling balances between cards for years. They owe $3,400 to some medical billing company that's been sending them to collections. And there's a second mortgage I didn't know about. A second mortgage? Took it out in 2019. Another $60,000. They've been paying interest only for 4 years. Marcus's voice cracked slightly. Mike, the house isn't worth $800,000 like they told us. I looked up comparable sales in their neighborhood. It might be worth $420,000 on a good day. The numbers hit me like physical blows. So the estate. There is no estate. Not anymore. When you factor in all the debt, they're probably $150,000 underwater. Maybe more. I stared at my computer screen without seeing it. They've been spending my money and borrowed money for years, living like they were wealthy, while planning to leave me nothing from an inheritance that doesn't actually exist. It gets worse, Marcus said quietly. I found receipts, Mike. Carnival Cruise Lines. Resort stays in Scottsdale. A fucking wine club membership that costs $200 a month. They've been living like retirees in a gated community while you ate ramen in a studio apartment. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. Not just the deception, but the scope of it. Years of, we can't afford, and money is tight, while they were apparently living it up on my dime and borrowed funds. Marcus, I need you to understand something, I said carefully. I'm not coming back from this. Whatever you decide to do, whatever happens to them, I'm done. They made their choice when they updated that will. I know. And honestly, after seeing what they did to you, I don't blame you. He paused. But I can't just let them lose the house. Sarah keeps asking what I'm going to tell the twins about why Grandma and Grandpa are homeless. So what's your plan? I talked to a bankruptcy attorney this morning. If they file Chapter 13, they might be able to keep the house and restructure the debt. But they'd need someone to co-sign and guarantee the payment plan. And that someone would be you. Yeah. Me and Sarah. We'd have to refinance our apartment and probably move somewhere cheaper, but we could swing maybe $1,200 a month. His voice got smaller. Mike, I know I have no right to ask this, but if you could see your way to maybe helping with just $500 a month, we might be able to make it work. $500. Even now, even after everything, they wanted me to pay. Marcus, I said, let me ask you something. In all your conversations with them about this crisis, have they once apologized for lying to you? Or to me? Long silence. No, he admitted. Mom keeps saying you misunderstood the situation. Dad just keeps talking about how they raised us better than this. Then you have your answer about whether they've learned anything from this. I hung up and immediately called my new apartment complex. Patricia. This is Michael Chen. I signed a lease with you last week. I need to move my move-in date up. How soon can I get the keys? I moved into my new apartment on a Wednesday, 3 days after Marcus called me begging for money. The silence from my parents was deafening, no pleading voicemails, no desperate texts, nothing. I figured Marcus had told them about my final refusal and they'd finally accepted reality. I was wrong. Friday evening, I was assembling my first real dining table, a beautiful oak piece I bought without checking my bank balance first, when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Mid-40s, professional looking, holding a briefcase. Mr. Chin. I'm Detective Lisa Morrison with the Portland Police Bureau. I need to speak with you about your parents. My blood went cold. Are they okay? They're alive, if that's your concern. May I come in? I led her to my living room, my mind racing through possibilities. Had they tried to hurt themselves? Been in an accident? Mr. Chen, your parents filed a police report yesterday alleging financial elder abuse. They claim you've been controlling their finances and have now abandoned them in retaliation for not making you their primary beneficiary. I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. They filed a police report against me. Detective Morrison pulled out a notebook. According to their statement, you've been managing their bank accounts for several years and recently withdrew financial support when you learned their will didn't favor you. They say you're trying to force them into homelessness to manipulate them into changing their estate planning. The audacity was staggering. Detective, I think you need to see some bank records. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up 8 years of transfer history, turning the screen toward her. These are voluntary payments I made to help with their expenses. My money, from my account, sent to them monthly. At no point did I have access to their accounts. She studied the screen, scrolling through the endless $2,000 transfers. This is substantial. $192,000 over 8 years. Plus probably another $20,000 in emergency payments for medical bills, car repairs, things like that. Detective Morrison looked up from the laptop. Mr. Chen, your parents told us you were living in their house rent-free and controlling their finances as a form of manipulation. I've never lived with my parents as an adult. I can show you 8 years of lease agreements for my previous apartment. I pulled out my phone and called my old landlord. Jim. It's Michael Chen. I need you to confirm something for a police officer. I handed her the phone and watched her face change as Jim confirmed I'd been a reliable tenant paying $1,100 monthly rent for 8 years, just moved out this week. When she handed the phone back, her expression was much more skeptical of my parents' story. Detective, did they mention that they've taken out over $145,000 in home equity loans while I've been supporting them? Or that they've been using my money to fund vacations and luxury expenses? They did not. She closed her notebook. Mr. Chen, I have to ask, is there any chance this could be seen as you using financial support to gain influence over their estate planning? If that were true, wouldn't I be the beneficiary? The will leaves everything to my brother, who lives in Portland and hasn't contributed a dime. I pulled up the estate documents on my phone. This was signed 3 weeks ago, while I was still sending them money. Detective Morrison reviewed the will, then looked back at my banking records. Your parents seemed very convinced that you were trying to coerce them. My parents are facing foreclosure because they've been living beyond their means for years while I subsidized their lifestyle. Now they're desperate and looking for someone to blame besides themselves. She stood up, sliding her notebook into her jacket. Mr. Chen, I don't see evidence of financial abuse here. If anything. She paused diplomatically. I'd recommend your parents consult with a financial advisor rather than law enforcement. After she left, I sat in my beautiful new apartment surrounded by boxes and thought about how far my parents were willing to go to avoid accountability. They'd actually tried to have me arrested for the crime of stopping their allowance. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, ** Marcus talked to bankruptcy lawyer again. They need character references for your parents. Could you write a letter, **? I typed back, ** they just tried to have me arrested for elder abuse. The answer is no, *. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then, what? Ask Marcus to call Detective Lisa Morrison with Portland PD, case number 2024-847291. This time, no 3 dots appeared at all. The bankruptcy lawyer called me directly on Tuesday morning. Mr. Chen, this is Robert Valdez from Valdez and Associates. I've been working with your brother Marcus on your parents' financial situation. His voice was professionally neutral, but I could hear the underlying tension. I need to ask you some questions about the police report your parents filed. What about it? Well, frankly, it's created a problem. When someone files an elder abuse claim against a family member, it raises red flags about the family's credibility with the bankruptcy court. The trustee is going to want to investigate whether there's been financial manipulation involved. I almost laughed. So their attempt to frame me is sabotaging Marcus's bailout plan? In essence, yes. The trustee will want to see all financial records going back several years, including any money that came from family members. Your $192,000 in payments is going to be heavily scrutinized. Scrutinized how? The court will want to determine if those payments were gifts, loans, or potentially fraudulent transfers designed to hide assets. If they're classified as loans, your parents would owe you that money and it would increase their debt load substantially. I sat down hard in my new kitchen chair. And if they're classified as gifts? Then the court might view them as evidence that your parents had access to significant family financial support and question why they need bankruptcy protection at all. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on me. My parents' greed and desperation had created a legal trap that could destroy their last chance at keeping the house. Mr. Valdez, what exactly do you need from me? Honestly, I need you to either agree to testify that the payments were unconditional gifts with no expectation of repayment, or I need documentation proving they were formal loans that your parents defaulted on. What happens if I don't cooperate at all? Long pause. Then the trustee will likely assume the worst-case scenario and treat the payments as fraudulent asset transfers. Your parents would be ineligible for Chapter 13 protection. Meaning foreclosure. Meaning foreclosure, and potentially criminal charges for bankruptcy fraud if the court believes they intentionally hid financial resources. After I hung up, I called Sarah directly. The bankruptcy lawyer says my parents might face fraud charges, I said without preamble. Did Marcus know they were going to file that police report? God no. He's furious about it. He tried to get them to withdraw the complaint, but they're doubling down. Your mom told him you've always been manipulative and she's not going to let you intimidate them anymore. Manipulative, I repeated. By paying their bills for 8 years. Marcus found more credit card statements yesterday. Michael, they spent $4,000 at a casino in Reno last March. While you were sending them grocery money. The hits kept coming. What's Marcus going to do? That's what I called to ask you. The bankruptcy lawyer says if you're willing to sign something stating the payments were gifts, not loans, it might help their case. But Marcus doesn't want to ask you after everything they've put you through. I looked around my apartment, my beautiful, peaceful, parent-free apartment, and thought about what I owed these people who had tried to have me arrested for the crime of financial exhaustion. Sarah, can I ask you something? In all your conversations with my parents about this mess, have they ever once acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, they treated me unfairly? Your mom keeps saying she doesn't understand why you're being so vindictive. There's your answer. So you won't sign the document. I thought about Detective Morrison's visit, about my parents sitting in a police station spinning lies about the son who had kept them housed and fed for nearly a decade. I thought about Marcus and Sarah, decent people caught in the blast radius of my parents' selfishness. Tell the lawyer I'll sign one document stating the payments were gifts. But I want something in return. What? I want them to withdraw the police complaint and issue a written apology admitting they lied. Not to me, I don't care about their apologies anymore. But a formal statement to the police clearing my name. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. And if they refuse? Then they can explain to a bankruptcy judge why their son stopped giving them free money. Should be an interesting conversation. The response from my parents came through Marcus 3 days later, and it was exactly what I expected. They won't do it, he said over the phone, his voice tight with frustration. Mom said withdrawing the police report would be admitting they were wrong when they were just protecting themselves. Dad keeps insisting you manipulated them psychologically and they have nothing to apologize for. I was sitting in my new home office, an actual dedicated workspace instead of my kitchen table, watching the sunset through windows that belonged to me. So they'd rather face bankruptcy fraud charges than admit they lied. Mike, I tried everything. I showed them the bankruptcy lawyer's warning about criminal charges. I explained that without your cooperation, they'll lose the house anyway. Mom just said you're finally showing your true colors and they won't be blackmailed by their own son. The twisted logic was almost impressive. I was blackmailing them by refusing to clean up a mess they created while they tried to destroy my reputation with false police reports. What did Sarah say about all this? Marcus sighed heavily. She said we should walk away. Let them face the consequences and focus on protecting our own family. The twins don't need to grow up watching their parents sacrifice everything for grandparents who won't even admit they're wrong. That's surprisingly harsh coming from her. She's pregnant again, Marcus said quietly. We just found out last week. She's worried about stress affecting the baby, and honestly, dealing with mom and dad's drama every day is taking a toll. Pregnant. So my brother was looking at 3 kids while my parents expected him to bankrupt himself saving them from their own financial recklessness. The situation was getting uglier by the day. Marcus, can I give you some advice? Walk away. You've got a family to protect, and they've made it clear they'd rather burn everything down than take responsibility for their choices. I know you're right. But Mike, they're still our parents. What happens when they're homeless? Before I could answer, my other line beeped. Unknown number with my parents' area code. Marcus, I need to take this. I think it's about to get more interesting. I switched lines. Michael Chen. Mr. Chen, this is David Patel, I'm a reporter with the Oregonian. I'm working on a story about elder financial abuse and I understand you've been involved in a case with the Portland police. Would you be willing to comment? My blood turned to ice. I'm sorry, what story? We're investigating a pattern of adult children using financial control to manipulate elderly parents. Your parents reached out to us after filing their police report, saying they want to warn other seniors about this type of abuse. They'd gone to the media. My parents had actually contacted a newspaper to publicly accuse me of elder abuse. Mr. Patel, I think you should know that the police investigated and found no evidence of abuse. Detective Lisa Morrison can confirm that. Yes, I spoke with Detective Morrison. But your parents say the police don't understand the psychological manipulation involved. They provided bank records showing large transfers from your account to theirs, then sudden cessation of support. Did they mention that those transfers were voluntary support payments I made for 8 years? Or that they were living beyond their means on my money while planning to leave me out of their will entirely? I could hear typing on the other end. They mentioned the will dispute, yes. They say you demanded to be made primary beneficiary in exchange for continued support. That's completely false. I never knew about the will until after I'd been supporting them for 8 years. More typing. Would you be willing to provide documentation? Bank records, the will, correspondence about the financial arrangements. I thought quickly. A newspaper investigation could actually work in my favor if I played it right. Mr. Patel, I'll provide you with complete financial records, but I want you to ask my parents some specific questions first. Such as, ask them how much debt they've accumulated while I was supporting them. Ask them about the home equity loans, the credit cards, the casino trips to Reno. Ask them why they never disclosed their actual financial situation to their other son who they named as beneficiary. Casino trips. $4,000 at a Reno casino last March while I was sending them money for groceries. I can provide the credit card statements if you'd like to verify that. The typing stopped. Mr. Chen, would you be available to meet tomorrow? I think this story might be more complex than your parents suggested. After hanging up, I immediately called Marcus back. We have a problem, I said. Mom and Dad contacted the Oregonian. They're trying to turn this into a public story about elder abuse. Jesus Christ. Are you serious? Dead serious. They want to make me the poster child for financial manipulation of seniors. Mike, this could destroy your career. Your reputation. Not if I get ahead of it. I'm meeting with the reporter tomorrow with 8 years of financial records. By the time I'm done, the story is going to be about elderly parents who defrauded their own son. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. You know there's no coming back from this, right? If you destroy them publicly, that's it. Forever. I looked around my peaceful apartment, thought about my healthy bank account and my upcoming promotion at work. I thought about Detective Morrison's visit and my parents' willingness to have me arrested for loving them too much. Marcus, I said, they destroyed this family the day they decided I was worth nothing to them. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. The meeting with David Patel took place at a coffee shop downtown, and I came prepared. I printed out 8 years of bank statements, credit card records I'd obtained through Marcus, the original will, and a timeline documenting every major financial crisis I'd helped my parents through. Patel was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with a kind of intense focus that told me he was used to digging deep into stories. He spread my documents across our corner table like he was assembling a puzzle. This is extensive, he said, scanning the bank transfers. Your parents told me you'd been giving them maybe $300 or $400 occasionally. $192,000 over 8 years, I corrected. Plus emergency payments. There's a $2,800 payment in April 2022 when Dad needed a cardiac procedure. A $1,500 payment in September 2023 when their roof leaked. He compared my records to notes from his interview with my parents. They said you lived with them rent-free and contributed to household expenses in lieu of payment. I pulled out my lease agreements. I've never lived with my parents as an adult. Here's 8 years of rent payments to my former landlord, plus utilities, plus the money I was sending them. Patel photographed each document with his phone. Mr. Chen, your parents seem very convinced that you were trying to control their financial decisions. They mentioned you requiring receipts and questioning their spending. I never required receipts. But when someone calls you crying because they can't afford their medication, and then you see Facebook photos of them at a resort in Arizona, you start asking questions. About that, they said the trips were gifts from friends or paid for with savings from before their financial difficulties began. I slid the credit card statements across the table. These charges are from March 2024. $4,000 at the Silver Legacy Casino in Reno, charged while I was sending them $2,000 a month for basic living expenses. You can verify the dates against my bank transfers. His expression shifted as he studied the timeline. And they never disclosed this spending to you. Mr. Patel, they called me in February 2024, 1 month before the casino trip, asking for an emergency payment because they couldn't afford Mom's diabetes medication. I sent them an extra $400 that week. He was typing rapidly on his laptop now. What about the will situation? They say you found out about the inheritance and immediately cut off support in retaliation. I found out about the will on a Tuesday night at 11:47 p.m. It was dated 3 weeks earlier, 3 weeks after I'd helped them negotiate a payment plan with the hospital for Mom's emergency room visit. I pulled out my phone and showed him the email timestamp. I didn't cut them off in retaliation for the will. I cut them off because I realized they'd been lying to everyone in the family for years. Lying how? I showed him the printed emails Sarah had shared, the ones where my parents told Marcus they were leaving everything to charity while simultaneously updating their will to make him sole beneficiary. They told my brother they were fine financially while accepting thousands from me monthly. They told him they were leaving everything to charity while planning to make him rich. They told the police I was controlling their finances while I was actually subsidizing a lifestyle they couldn't afford. Patel read through the emails, cross-referencing dates with the will and my payment history. Mr. Chen, have your parents ever acknowledged that there might be some inconsistencies in what they've told different people? Yesterday my mother told my brother that I'm finally showing my true colors and accused me of blackmail for refusing to help with their bankruptcy case. They're filing for bankruptcy. Chapter 13. But the trustee has questions about my financial contributions, especially after they filed that police report. Their lawyer says the elder abuse allegation makes the court suspicious about fraudulent asset transfers. He looked up from his notes. So their attempt to accuse you publicly might actually hurt their bankruptcy case. Their greed created a paper trail, Mr. Patel. 8 years of me documenting every payment because I was trying to be responsible. Meanwhile, they've been living like lottery winners while borrowing against a house I helped them keep. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, *, this is your mother. The newspaper man said you're trying to destroy our reputation. How can you be so cruel to the people who raised you, asterisk. I showed the message to Patel. That's my mom. She somehow got my new number. New number. I had to change it after they started having friends and neighbors call me about being a selfish son. Apparently, they've been telling people I abandoned them out of pure greed. Patel closed his laptop and leaned back in his chair. Mr. Chen, I think I need to make some additional calls before I write this story. The story that ran in the Oregonian 3 days later wasn't the one my parents had expected. Elderly couple accused son of abuse while living on his money ran above the fold on the Metro section front page, complete with a photo of my parents' house, the house I'd helped save from foreclosure twice. Patel had done his homework. He'd interviewed Detective Morrison, who confirmed the police found no evidence of abuse. He'd spoken with the bankruptcy attorney, who explained how the false police report had complicated their case. He'd even tracked down my old landlord, Jim, who verified I'd been a model tenant paying rent reliably for 8 years while simultaneously supporting my parents. But the most damaging part was a sidebar comparing my parents' public statements. The casino receipts, the resort charges, the wine club membership, all contrasted against their claims of being barely able to afford food and medication. In interviews, David and Linda Chen portrayed their son Michael as financially controlling and manipulative, Patel wrote. However, bank records show Michael Chen voluntarily transferred $192,000 to his parents over 8 years while maintaining his own apartment and never having access to their accounts. Credit card statements reveal the couple spent thousands on luxury expenses during the same period they claimed financial hardship. My work phone started ringing at 7:23 a.m. Michael? It's Sandra, my manager said, her voice tense. I just read the newspaper article. HR wants to meet with you this morning. My stomach dropped. Am I in trouble? Not trouble exactly, but when employees are mentioned in newspaper articles about police investigations, even cleared ones, it triggers a review process. 9 a.m. in conference room B. The HR meeting turned out to be surprisingly supportive. After I explained the situation and provided the same documentation I'd given Patel, the HR director actually apologized. Michael, this is clearly a personal family matter that got out of hand, she said. The article makes it obvious you were the victim here, not the perpetrator. We just needed to make sure there weren't any workplace implications. What kind of implications? Well, if you'd actually been embezzling or financially abusing elderly people, that would affect your security clearance and client access. But this appears to be the opposite situation. You were too generous with family members who took advantage. By 10 a.m., I was back at my desk fielding emails from coworkers who'd read the story. Most were supportive, but the attention made me uncomfortable. I'd never wanted this to become public. My personal phone buzzed with a call from Marcus. Mike, have you seen the online comments on the article? I'm trying not to look. Don't. Just don't. Some people are supporting mom and dad, saying children should always help their parents regardless. But most of the comments are pretty brutal. I pulled up the article despite his warning. The comments section was a battlefield. Asterisk, these parents are disgusting. They lived high on their son's money then tried to destroy his reputation when he got wise to them. Asterisk. Asterisk, elder abuse is a real problem but these people crying wolf make it harder for actual victims. Asterisk. Asterisk, $192,000 over 8 years. That son is a saint. Most people wouldn't have lasted 8 months. Asterisk. But there were defenders too. Asterisk, family takes care of family. This son abandoned his elderly parents over money. Shameful. Asterisk. Asterisk, the parents raised him for 18 years, he can support them in return. That's how families work. Asterisk. Asterisk, there's probably more to this story. Adult children can be very manipulative. Asterisk. Marcus, I said, how are mom and dad handling this? Not well. Dad called me at 6 this morning, crying. He says they're getting nasty phone calls and someone left a note in their mailbox calling them scammers. Mom won't come to the phone. Despite everything, I felt a stab of guilt. I'd wanted to clear my name, but I hadn't anticipated the public backlash would be this intense. Are they still refusing to withdraw the police complaint? Actually, that's why I'm calling. Their lawyer, not the bankruptcy guy, some other attorney, called this morning. He wants to meet with you about a mutual resolution of the situation. What kind of resolution? I think they want to make a deal. The lawyer's name was Gerald Hoffman, and he looked exactly like what I'd expect from someone willing to represent my parents after their public humiliation, cheap suit, cluttered office, and the kind of desperate energy that comes from taking cases other attorneys won't touch. Mr. Chen, thank you for coming, he said, gesturing to a cracked leather chair across from his desk. I think we can resolve this situation in a way that benefits everyone. My parents sat in matching chairs to my left, looking smaller and older than I remembered. Mom's hands were shaking slightly, her blood sugar, probably, and Dad couldn't meet my eyes. The newspaper article had clearly taken a toll. What kind of resolution? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Hoffman pulled out a folder thick with documents. Your parents are prepared to withdraw the police complaint and issue a public statement clarifying the situation. In exchange, you would sign an agreement acknowledging that all previous financial support was given freely, with no expectation of repayment or inheritance consideration. I already offered to sign something like that for the bankruptcy court. They refused unless I agreed to resume payments. Yes, well, circumstances have changed. Hoffman glanced at my parents, neither of whom had spoken since I'd arrived. The media attention has been challenging for your parents. They're willing to be more flexible now. I looked at Mom and Dad directly. Are you going to tell me why you did it? The will, the lies to Marcus, the police report. Dad finally looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. Michael, we never meant for any of this to happen. We thought you'd understand about the will. You're successful, you don't have children. Marcus has those babies to think about. So you decided I didn't deserve anything because I'm single? It wasn't like that, Mom said, her voice barely above a whisper. We just thought it would be easier if Marcus got the house. We figured you two could work something out between yourselves. The casual dismissal of nearly $200,000 of support as something that would be easier for Marcus to handle was breathtaking in its thoughtlessness. What about the lies? I pressed. Telling Marcus you were leaving everything to charity while telling me nothing. Using my money for vacations while claiming you couldn't afford medication. Hoffman cleared his throat. Mr. Chen, my clients acknowledge there may have been some miscommunication. Miscommunication? I cut him off. They tried to have me arrested for elder abuse while I was subsidizing casino trips to Reno. Dad's face flushed. That casino thing, that was just one time. Linda's sister was visiting and she wanted to go. We didn't spend that much. $4,000, Dad. While I was eating dollar store pasta so I could send you grocery money. Mom started crying quietly, which she'd always done when confronted with uncomfortable truths. It used to work on me when I was younger. Mr. Chen, Hoffman said, your parents are facing bankruptcy and potential criminal charges. The negative publicity has affected your father's reputation in the medical community, even though he's been retired for 3 years. They're willing to make this right. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. I've gotten 67 text messages since yesterday from numbers I don't recognize. People calling me everything from a saint to a selfish bastard. My HR department had to meet with me about the media attention. My parents turned my private family situation into a public circus. Which is exactly why we need to resolve this quickly, Hoffman said. A joint statement clarifying that this was a family misunderstanding, acknowledging your generosity over the years, and confirming that everyone is moving forward amicably. What's in it for me besides clearing up the mess they created? Mom looked up through her tears. Michael, we could change the will. Maybe not 50-50, but something. 25%. Even now, even facing financial ruin and public shame, she was still negotiating down my worth to the family. I stood up and walked to Hoffman's grimy window, looking down at the parking lot where my reliable Honda sat next to their ancient Buick. 2 cars that told the story of our different priorities over the past 8 years. I'll sign your statement, I said without turning around. But I have conditions. The silence in the room stretched until Hoffman cleared his throat. What conditions? I turned back to face them, studying my parents' expectant faces. They thought I was going to make this easy for them. First, you withdraw the police complaint immediately and provide Detective Morrison with a written statement admitting you filed a false report. Not a misunderstanding, a false report. Dad shifted uncomfortably. Michael, if we admit we lied to the police, there could be legal consequences. There should be legal consequences. You tried to destroy my reputation to cover up your own financial incompetence. Hoffman made a note. What else? Second, you pay for a full-page ad in the Oregonian with a public apology. You explained that you lied about me, that I supported you voluntarily for 8 years, and that you're grateful for my sacrifice. Mom's tears stopped abruptly. A full-page ad? Michael, those cost thousands of dollars. We don't have. Then sell some of Mom's jewelry. Cancel the wine club membership. Figure it out. That's quite expensive, Hoffman said carefully. Perhaps a smaller notice. Full page or no deal. You made this public, you can fix it publicly. I sat back down and pulled out my phone, scrolling to my calculator app. Third, you're going to pay me back. Dad's face went white. Son, we can't possibly repay. Not the full amount. I'm not unreasonable. I showed them my screen. $192,000 at 3% annual interest over 8 years comes to approximately $237,000. I want $50,000. $50,000. Mom gasped. Where would we get $50,000? The same place you got the money for Reno and Scottsdale. The same place you got $85,000 for your home equity loan. I don't care if you have to sell the house, liquidate everything, and move into a studio apartment. You owe me. Hoffman was writing frantically. Mr. Chen, your parents are filing for bankruptcy. They don't have $50,000 in assets. Then they better hope Marcus is feeling generous. Or maybe they can ask some of those friends who've been calling me a selfish son to open their wallets. I leaned forward, looking directly at my parents. Fourth, you're going to call Marcus and Sarah and tell them the truth about everything. The real debt numbers, the casino trips, the lies about charity. Everything. We already told Marcus about our finances, Dad said weakly. You told him what he found by digging through your records. You didn't voluntarily disclose 8 years of lying to his face about your situation while his brother bankrupted himself keeping you comfortable. Mom was crying again, but it was different now, angry tears instead of manipulative ones. You're trying to humiliate us. Your own parents. I'm trying to make you face consequences for the first time in your adult lives. There's a difference. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, *, this is Janet Morrison, Detective Morrison's partner. We need to discuss additional evidence that's come to light regarding your parents' case, *. I showed the message to Hoffman. Looks like the police investigation isn't over. His face went pale. What kind of additional evidence? I have no idea, but I'm guessing someone read the newspaper article and decided to share information about my parents' spending habits. Maybe a casino employee. Maybe a travel agent. Maybe one of their neighbors who's tired of hearing them complain about being broke while watching them leave for weekend trips. Dad was gripping the arms of his chair so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Michael, if more charges are filed, then you should have thought about that before you decided to commit fraud and file false police reports. I stood up again and headed for the door. You have 24 hours to decide. Meet my conditions, or deal with whatever Detective Morrison's partner wants to discuss. And gentlemen, the bankruptcy attorney called me this morning. Without my cooperation, your Chapter 13 petition gets denied Monday. The foreclosure sale is scheduled for Friday. Hoffman called out as I reached the door. Mr. Chen, please be reasonable. Your parents are elderly, they made mistakes. My parents are con artists who got caught. The fact that they're elderly just makes it more pathetic. I walked out of that grimy office knowing I'd never see my parents again. Whatever they decided about my conditions, whatever happened with the additional police investigation, whatever Marcus chose to do about their bankruptcy, none of it was my problem anymore. For the first time in 8 years, their crisis was truly their own. The call from Detective Morrison's partner came at 6:47 a.m. the next morning, exactly 23 hours and 13 minutes after I'd given my parents their ultimatum. Mr. Chin. This is Detective Janet Morrison, Lisa's my wife, different departments, sorry for the confusion in my text. I'm with Financial Crimes. We've had 3 separate tips since the newspaper article ran, all regarding your parents' spending patterns. I sat up in bed, immediately alert. What kind of tips? A casino host in Reno says your parents were regular VIP customers, not the one-time visit they claimed. A travel agent downtown says they booked 7 resort trips in the past 2 years, always paying cash. And their next-door neighbor provided us with photos of a new Cadillac SUV parked in their driveway last month. My blood went cold. What Cadillac? 2024 Escalade. Neighbor says your parents claimed it belonged to a visiting friend, but she photographed the same vehicle there for 2 weeks straight. We ran the plates, it's registered to your father. They'd bought a $70,000 car while crying poverty to me and Marcus. While facing foreclosure. While I was eating ramen so they could afford groceries. Detective, I need to call my brother. He's been trying to save their house. Mr. Chen, we're opening a formal fraud investigation. Wire fraud, potentially elder abuse of Marcus through financial deception, bankruptcy fraud. Your parents are in serious legal trouble. I called Marcus immediately. Where are you right now? At work, why? Mike, you sound. Go to mom and dad's house. Right now. Look for a black Cadillac Escalade. What are you talking about? Just go. Call me back when you get there. 47 minutes later, my phone rang. Mike. Marcus's voice was hollow. It's here. Parked behind the garage where you can't see it from the street. The registration is in Dad's name, purchased October 15th, $73,000. Marcus. While I was preparing to co-sign their bankruptcy papers. While Sarah was calculating how we'd afford 3 kids if we refinanced to save their house. His voice cracked. They bought a luxury car with money they borrowed, while you sent them thousands every month, while they told everyone they were destitute. The silence stretched between us until he spoke again, quieter now. I'm done, Mike. Whatever happens to them happens. Sarah's right, we have our own family to protect. Gerald Hoffman called at 2:15 p.m. Mr. Chen, my clients accept your conditions. All of them. They'll withdraw the police complaint today, pay for the newspaper apology, arrange payment of the $50,000, and make full disclosure to Marcus. Too late, I said. Financial Crimes opened a fraud investigation this morning. Your clients are about to be arrested. Arrested? Mr. Chen, surely we can still work something out. The only thing I'm working out is my weekend plans. Which don't involve cleaning up any more messes for people who spent 8 years lying to my face. I hung up and booked a flight to Hawaii. First class. Because I could finally afford it. The arrests were made Friday morning. Wire fraud, bankruptcy fraud, filing false police reports. The foreclosure sale went through that afternoon, the house sold for $340,000, nowhere near enough to cover their debts. Marcus called me from Maui, where I was sitting on a beach drinking something with an umbrella in it. They're asking for bail money, he said. Are you calling to ask me to help? God, no. I'm calling to tell you Sarah and I are moving to Denver. Her sister lives there, we found good schools for the twins. We want to be far away from this whole mess. Smart move. Mike. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. About everything. About not knowing, not helping, not seeing what they were doing to you. I watched the sunset paint the Hawaiian sky in shades of orange and pink, colors I'd never taken time to appreciate when I was too busy managing other people's emergencies. Marcus, we're good. Take care of your family. The newspaper ran my parents' mugshot 6 months later when they were sentenced. 18 months each for fraud. The comments section was no longer divided. I never heard from them again. And for the first time in my adult life, that silence sounded exactly like peace.